Hello everyone. So today I want to talk about something that's not necessarily just for orchestral music, but it's kind of a really important thing, and I think I have a really good example of that in this track. So I wanted to talk about it. So I want you to pay attention to frequency masking when you EQ, because the thing is, what matters is how the sound is going to be in the mix. So for example, I got this snare here, and as you listen to it right now, it might sound nice, but also a little bit treble heavy. A little bit shimmery, maybe too shimmery in solo. But the thing is, because this is a really dense mix, the perception of the snare is going to change. So if you pay attention to it in the context of the mix, it's going to feel very woody and darker, and it's going to feel like it has more body to treble ratio. Pay attention to the sound. So I don't know if you noticed, but basically the tail becomes shorter because the kind of the reverb of the tail is being masked by the other elements, and also because there is already so many high mids going on with the guitars, etc. The treble high mids slash high mids of the snare kind of get masked, and what comes out more is more of the woody kind of lower mid-range texture of the snare in context of the mix. But the thing is, you actually need those highs, otherwise the snare wouldn't be as punchy and would actually feel too muffled in the mix. So basically what you need to remember from this is that it's fine to EQ in solo, but keep in mind that if you have many layers competing in the same range, such as guitars, synth, like there is so many things in this track kind of competing around this high mid treble kind of snare range, that is just kind of masking the snare and making it feel different in context of the mix. So the more things you have competing in the same range, the more the element you're trying to EQ will sound different, basically. That's the thing. So frequency masking also affects amplitude and loudness, and let me explain why. So pay attention to the length of the tail of the snare. And now pay attention to how long it feels in the mix. Right? You don't hear all that reverb in the mix. And the point is, basically, if I use my trusty paint, what happens is that you got that bed of guitars or all the sustained sounds that are going on here, like a bunch of them. Let's say that's the bed of guitars or whatever. And then you got your snare, right? So that's the waveform of the snare. And actually, all the part that's under the bed of music, actually, I can even make it bigger. All the part that's under the bed of music, you don't hear it because it's being masked. So in context of the mix, what you will perceive is just that duration here before it goes buried under the sustained elements. In solo, what you would perceive is the full duration of the snare, right? So that's the difference. Because there is stuff going on masking the length of the tail, as the tail gets quieter on the snare, that quieter tail will go under and the perceived sound will feel shorter. So that's why when you configure reverbs on drums or stuff like that, or just in general, you need to listen in context, because depending on how dense a track is, what's going on, how you will perceive the loudness of certain things and the dynamic of certain things will be different. And like, I mean, it's like really audible here. And so basically, in context of the mix, the effect of the reverb, for example, will be a lot smaller, of course, because it's being masked. But having that extra reverb is going to prevent the snare from being way too short, because it's always going to feel longer in solo. It's going to feel like it has a longer tail, but in the mix, it's instantly going to feel short. So even though it might feel like extra wet in solo, it's actually going to feel like it's the right length in context of the mix. So yeah, guys, I hope that was interesting. And yeah, so remember 2 types of frequency masking. frequency masking in terms of frequencies, like for example, the sound not feeling as sharp in context of the mix, but also frequency masking, making quieter sounds buried and actually changing the perception of dynamics. That's the two kind of effects, the main effects of frequency masking. So yeah, guys, hope it was interesting and see you later.